When you cry, something genuinely strange happens inside your body. Your lacrimal glands don't just produce fluid to protect your eyes. They release a cocktail of stress hormones, prolactin, adrenocorticotropic hormone, and signaling molecules that are chemically distinct from any other tears your body makes. No other animal on Earth does this. Not elephants, not dogs, not the great apes that share 98% of your DNA. For the entire span of vertebrate evolution, spanning hundreds of millions of years, emotional tears appear exactly once, in one species, yours. So the question isn't just why animals don't cry. The real question is why you do, and the answer is stranger than most people expect. Let's start with what tears actually are, because most people get this wrong. Every mammal has lacrimal glands. Every mammal produces tears. A cow's eyes water. A rabbit blinks with a wet cornea. Your dog's eyes produce fluid constantly, cleaning and lubricating with every blink. These are called basal tears, the maintenance system every vertebrate eye depends on. There are also reflex tears, the kind that flood your eyes when you cut an onion or when something sharp gets too close. Animals produce those too. But emotional tears, tears triggered by grief, overwhelm, or even profound joy, are something entirely different. They are tears the body didn't need to make, tears with a different chemical signature, tears that serve a purpose outside the eye entirely. The chemical distinction matters enormously. In 1981, biochemist William Frey II compared the composition of emotional tears against reflex and basal tears and found something striking. Emotional tears carry significantly higher levels of prolactin, adrenocorticotropic hormone, and leucine and enkephalin, bonding and stress hormones, plus a natural painkiller the brain releases under distress. This means when you cry, you are not just leaking. Your body is actively manufacturing a specific chemical payload and releasing it through your face. That is a biological process. It requires machinery. It required evolution to build it, which means at some point in your ancestral line, crying started doing something useful enough that the bodies that did it survived better than the ones that didn't. Now think about what crying communicates. It's visible from a distance, and it's genuinely hard to fake. Sincere emotional expressions recruit facial muscles driven by involuntary pathways in the brain, the same reason a forced smile never quite reaches the eyes. So a real cry is extremely difficult to reproduce on demand. This matters because honesty is expensive in social animals. A signal that's difficult to fake is a signal worth trusting. When you cry in front of another person, you are broadcasting vulnerability in a way that's extremely costly to counterfeit. That's not weakness. That's sophisticated social communication. It's a signal that says, I am not a threat right now. I need help. And the system in the listener that receives that signal is just as old. But here's what's fascinating. Animals don't need tears to do this. Not even close. In all mammals and most birds, distress is communicated through something far older. Vocalization. Biologist Tecumseh Fitch at the University of Vienna has spent decades showing that infant distress calls are built from the same raw acoustic ingredients. Rough, chaotic, attention-grabbing sound, shared across mammal species, and conserved over millions of years. Your infant's crying is phylogenetically ancient. The tears that come with it are not. The tears are a human addition, an upgrade maybe, or a specialization built for something your ancestors needed that animals living in smaller, less complicated social worlds simply didn't. Young deer produce a chemical secretion from a suborbital gland just below the eye when separated from their mother. She responds to it immediately. Elephant calves vocalize with low rumbling calls when distressed, and nearby herd members converge within seconds. These systems work. They have been working for far longer than your tear ducts have been doing anything emotional. The fact that animals lack emotional tears does not mean animals lack emotional communication. It means they found other solutions. Cheaper solutions in evolutionary terms. The question is, what problem was so specific to humans that tears became the answer? Here's the part most people miss. In 2022, a team at Asabu University in Japan published a study in Current Biology that found something extraordinary. Dogs produce slightly elevated tear volume when reuniting with their owners. The effect was triggered by oxytocin, the bonding hormone. When the researchers applied oxytocin drops to dogs' eyes directly, caregivers rated those animals as significantly more emotionally intense and felt stronger urges to care for them. This is not standard emotional crying. Dogs aren't weeping over heartbreak, but it suggests the visual signal of eye moisture may have been quietly co-opted somewhere in the 15,000-year partnership between dogs and humans, shaped by the same selection pressure that shaped your own tears. We made dogs more like us, and some part of them responded. The elephant story is more complicated. Elephant researcher Joyce Poole, who has studied African elephants in Kenya since 1975, has documented what observers consistently describe as visible eye moisture during moments of loss or distress in elephant herds. Poole's decades of field notes include multiple observations of fluid flowing from the temporal gland and eye region during grief events. But the temporal gland is a scent gland, not a lacrimal gland, and what looks like crying is likely a stress secretion from an entirely different system. Elephants do mourn. They do grieve. They return to the bones of dead herd members. They display behaviors that researchers describe as consolation. But whether any of that involves tears in the emotional sense humans experience remains unconfirmed. What elephants show instead is something arguably more striking: full social mourning without a single tear. So what does all of this mean for you? It means the machinery in your chest that tightens when you cry, the wet face, the involuntary muscle contractions, the chemical flood. All of it is a specialized social tool that your species built over thousands of generations of living in groups complicated enough to need it. Groups with politics, histories, alliances, and betrayals. Groups where knowing whether someone was genuinely broken or merely performing brokenness could be the difference between wasting resources on a manipulator and saving someone who actually needed help. Psychologist Ad Vingerhoots, who has studied human crying for decades, argues tears evolved as exactly this kind of signal, a visible, hard-to-fake cue that pulls empathy and care out of the people around you. Your tears are not weakness. They are verification, a biological receipt that says the emotion is real. And here's the twist. The world didn't give you emotional tears because you feel more than other animals. Elephants grieve. Crows remember cruelty for years. Dolphins have been observed carrying their dead calves for days. The capacity for deep feeling is not uniquely human. What's uniquely human is the need to broadcast it across the gap of a complicated social world, visibly, verifiably, in a way that lands on the face of a stranger and triggers a caregiving response before a single word is spoken. You cry because you live in a world where other people need to believe you. Animals don't cry like you because most of them never needed anyone to. They had simpler worlds. They had sharper signals. They had glands below the eye and calls that carried across open ground. You got something quieter, something that only works if someone is close enough to see your face, something that only makes sense if belonging to a group of near strangers was already the most important survival strategy your ancestors had.